When the world learned on October 11, 2025, that Diane Keaton had passed away at 79 in her quiet red brick Brentwood home, Hollywood froze. She had embodied intelligence, eccentric charm, and fearless individuality, an actress who redefined modern womanhood in Annie Hall and stood beside giants in The Godfather. Her departure felt like the end of an era. But days later, an unexpected discovery reignited the mystery surrounding her life. In an old desk drawer lay a diary, its pages yellowed, its words deliberate. Inside was a list, names written in red ink, of men she once vowed never to face again. Each represented a chapter of pain, disappointment, or lost trust. Among them were directors, actors, and lovers who had shaped her career and her heart. Francis Ford Coppola, the artist who tested her faith. Their story began in 1971, when Coppola, still a young visionary, cast Keaton as Kay Adams in The Godfather. Others doubted her. Producer Robert Evans once remarked, "She looks like an artist wandering the Bronx, not a mafia wife." But Coppola saw depth, an intellect wrapped in vulnerability. The film changed both their lives. It won Oscars, birthed legends, and made Diane a star. Yet, behind the praise, tension simmered. By The Godfather Part 2, Coppola's perfectionism consumed him. Keaton once confessed she was terrified of his intensity, saying every scene felt like life or death. When Part 3 began nearly 2 decades later, Coppola begged her to return, promising only she could complete Kay's story. She agreed, but filming became chaos. When he replaced Winona Ryder with his daughter Sophia, Keaton warned him quietly, but he wouldn't hear it. The movie's troubled release fractured them completely. After Keaton told the press the story should have ended at Part 2, Coppola felt betrayed. They never spoke again. Years later, she wrote in her memoir, "Francis saw me when no one else did, but prophets pay for their faith." It was both gratitude and goodbye. Alec Baldwin, the defender who missed the point decades later, Keaton faced a new storm. In 2018, during the height of Me Too, Alec Baldwin reignited controversy by defending Woody Allen, repeating words Keaton herself had once said. "I believe Woody," he told Good Morning America, triggering outrage. To Keaton, Baldwin's act wasn't loyalty, it was performance. She had paid the price for standing by Allen years before. He merely echoed her stance to appear noble. "He doesn't know when silence is stronger than speech," she later wrote. Baldwin's defiance backfired. Social media turned on him. Younger stars condemned his tone-deaf defense. Yet Keaton remained quiet. Friends said she was disappointed, not angry, seeing in Baldwin the archetype of a man who confuses speaking loudly with doing good. Judd Apatow, the new guard. That judged the old when comedian-director Judd. Apatow criticized Keaton's loyalty to Allen. It symbolized Hollywood's generational divide. Apatow, the outspoken voice of modern comedy, called her view a relic of another time. The attack stung, not for its words, but for what it revealed, that the industry she helped build no longer valued quiet conviction. Keaton didn't fight back. She withdrew from interviews and social media, retreating into her photography and writing. In one of her final notes, she reflected, "I thought art meant truth. Now it only accepts comfort." Even Whoopi Goldberg defended her on The View. "Diane Keaton doesn't need lessons on being a woman," she wrote the definition. Al Pacino, the love that never settled of all the men in her life, Al Pacino was the one she loved longest. They met on The Godfather set. She, the spirited newcomer, he, the intense unknown actor. Their chemistry was undeniable, both on screen and off. Their relationship spanned years of breakups and reunions. Pacino, allergic to commitment, often disappeared into his work. Keaton longed for permanence. At one point, she waited days for him to say he believed in marriage. He never did. By The Godfather Part 3, it was over. She asked him to choose, marry or end it. He chose silence. At the premiere, they walked past each other without a word. Later, she said softly, "I loved Al so long I forgot who I was." In her journal, she wrote, "He never belonged to me, and he never belonged to anyone." Jack Nicholson, The ego that clashed with calm Keaton and Jack Nicholson represented opposites. He, chaos. She, control. Their paths first crossed at a 1970s after-party where she politely declined his offer to dance, saying, "Not with a man who already has company." The room laughed. Jack grinned. Years later, they were paired in Something's Gotta Give, 2003. On set, Nicholson's impulsive humor often crossed lines. Once, after a remark that cut too deep, Keaton left the set to walk alone by the sea. The film became a hit, earning her an Oscar nomination. But the tension lingered. Asked years later if she was ever attracted to him, she smiled. "I need peace. He only feels alive in disorder." To her, Nicholson wasn't an enemy, just a mirror of the Hollywood masculinity she rejected. Talented, charming, eternally adolescent. Woody Allen, the friendship that defined her no bond, shaped Keaton more than her lifelong connection with Woody Allen. They met in the late 1960s on Broadway's Play It Again. Sam, forming an instant creative partnership that produced Sleeper, Manhattan, and the iconic Annie Hall. When Allen's personal life imploded in the 1990s, most of Hollywood turned its back. Keaton did not. She continued to call him, visit him, and publicly defend him, once saying on stage at the Golden Globes, "Woody is my best friend and I believe in him." The backlash was fierce, especially in the social media age. Critics said she had betrayed women. Admirers called her loyal. Through it all, she stayed silent, refusing to explain or apologize. Among her last writings was a line that captured her loyalty. "I stood by him not because he was right, but because he was alone." Warren Beatty, the proposal she refused when Warren Beatty cast Keaton opposite him in Reds, 1981. He was at the height of fame, brilliant, demanding, and famously uncommitted. On set, they argued and laughed through endless nights, their connection both romantic and combative. Beatty admired her independence. She admired his brilliance but dreaded his control. "Being around Warren," she once said, "is like living in a storm." After Reds won Oscars, he proposed with a sapphire ring. She declined. He wanted a partner, she told Oprah years later. "I wanted to remain myself." Beatty eventually married Annette Bening. Keaton adopted 2 children and found peace in solitude. Yet she kept one photo from Reds, the 2 of them watching playback, faces glowing. She didn't keep it out of regret, but as proof that courage sometimes means walking away. Epilogue. What remained? The diary's final page carried one trembling line. "I don't hate them. I hate how they made me forget how strong I was. It wasn't bitterness, it was self-recognition." Diane Keaton had lived surrounded by genius, ego, and passion, and through it all, she protected the quiet integrity that made her unforgettable. In her life, every man was both muse and mirror. Coppola tested her belief in art. Baldwin reminded her that noise isn't courage. Apatow exposed a generational rift. Pacino broke her heart without cruelty. Nicholson embodied chaos she couldn't abide. Allen represented loyalty against the world. Beatty revealed love that demanded surrender she would never give. She left no clear verdict, no neat ending, only a reflection of a woman who lived by her own script. So who did Diane Keaton resent most? Perhaps none of them. Perhaps her only anger was toward a Hollywood that never knew how to love a woman who refused to be anyone's muse but her own.